no.
You want to plug it in up there or what?
No, not really.
This is. He's recording.
Oh, you're recording.
This has to be recorded for my professor so that she can see that one, I actually did this, and two, there were people there.
Move your drink.
I'm a people.
You are a people.
There's not many
You're
people
many
in
things.
it.
The people is one of them.
No, you guys need to move forward and so
like
you
a
can
three-
see
So
the
go ahead.
people. Yeah, because honestly, you can't see that there's a lot of people.
Oh,
Hold on.
she'll hear your charming voices.
We'll just do that.
Can we?
Slipping some jarhead jokes. Okay, so.
Does she need to see your face the whole time? I'm just curious.
I mean, if you want to like interactively do that and
Hold
like
on, no.
pan around the room.
How about you move over just a little bit?
Are you saying I'm fat?
No, I just want your butt in the
Ouch.
picture.
So you are saying I'm fat.
How about like that, and then just kind of, I'll go like this and tell you to move if you're like blocking the camera totally.
Is there a compromise spot?
Yep, perfect. Perfect. That's a perfect spot.
All you can see is Melissa. Alright. You're welcome.
She's got to be able to watch me during parts
That's
of
why I'm
business.
asking. I
So, yeah.
already moved it.
I had to move. So difficult.
I'm just trying to help.
That's fine.
Okay.
Hopefully we've got enough to do a whole hour.
Oh, you said-
Okay.
I didn't use it.
Real quick, does anybody here know how much a polar bear weighs?
Just enough to break the ice.
That is correct. Enough to break the ice.
Actually, that's pretty good. I was literally going to guess like 1,600 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay, hello everyone. I'd like to thank you all for coming. My name is Bryce Settlemyer. I'm a student at Metro State University. This is for integrated healthcare degree plan, and I'm in a community health class. So, without further ado there, I'm also a student veteran. I served in the Army for about 8 years on active and about another 4 on reserve side. So about 12 years now. God, I'm gonna need to give that up. I'd like to start by thanking Mr. Jimenez for giving me this time and allowing this to happen. We worked together on that. We did some interviews with him and with you. Not you.
Nope, not me.
Alright. So the first thing we're going to do is an icebreaker activity. My part's done. I had to make the joke. So we're going to do 5 minutes for that. Just want to go around real quick, introduce, because I don't actually know all of you. So quick introduction and tell me, what is your biggest stress on a scale of 1 to 10? Start with you. While we're doing that, I'm going to be passing some stuff around that we're going to do for different parts of the exercise, and it's also just handout material because there's no slideshow. And I only got about 5 or 6 copies because I actually never saw this many of you before.
When have you been going here? How long have you been going here?
A couple of years now, actually.
Okay.
Cool.
He used to have a beard.
Huh?
So he used to have a
I
beard.
know.
I was on duty yesterday. I had shaved
Oh, you
all
take
of
the whole package.
it. Whole package.
Oh,
Whole package.
Whole package. Okay.
Alright, Jeremy.
I'll share it with
Oh,
you.
You're up.
I don't need one.
Oh.
You don't want to look?
We're going to share it.
I'm technically not.
So you were
It doesn't exist.
You're a ghost.
I'm busy.
Okay, so stressors on a scale of 1 to 10, what are they? What is your biggest stressor? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it?
Time management. 3.
That's not that bad.
What's your name?
Drew.
Not my
Name, rank, and bank account number. I don't care about the social. I can't do anything with that. Thanks.
My name's Paul Caesar, Assistant Director for Veteran and Military Student Services. My biggest stressor on a scale from 1 to 10, my personal stressor is like losing weight.
Whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Losing weight,
Most
and
comfortable
that's probably
sharing.
about a 7.
Losing weight.
Yeah,
Losing weight. That's tough. You gotta give up the sugar. It's like a
Amen.
little smack.
yeah.
Oh, well, I know my name, so my name is Jessie, but can't think of a stress.
Really? Not one? You're one of the most high-strung people I see.
Why do you think I can't think of just one? I could name like 6.
I'll just pick 1 out of 6. Doesn't have to be the.
Okay, I'll take my literal nature. That one's really tough. It throws people off, throws me off, so that's like a huge stress in my life. I would say 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, right? So like a 9. That's pretty bad.
Ted Jimenez, I'd say my biggest stress is time management as well. I'd say a 6.
My name is Zach, and it's probably like a 10. My biggest stressor is mass bee die-off.
Do what?
Yeah, the bees, they're dying off, and it stresses me out.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a very
Okay.
crappy joke. Alright. Let's move on.
You were being serious?
Where were you on Tuesday evening when 500,000 bees were set on fire?
Not in the vicinity,
Okay,
for sure.
not in the city of that.
Okay, I'm Virginia. Biggest stressor, probably finances.
Big one.
I'm Leslie.
Yeah, we know.
My biggest stressor, probably the safety of my children.
Oh, yeah.
Of late.
Lately
Yeah.
has been a big one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A 10.
Appreciate that.
A 10, yeah.
Only 10?
Can't be 11? No.
We said 1 to 10.
I did. Thank you.
My name is Carlos. My biggest stressor is juggling full-time student, working, and family, and also outside of all those commitments, other commitments. So I guess really all in all, it is time management. That is my biggest stressor, about a 9.
Yeah.
Melissa. My biggest stressor currently is a report that I have to run for work. It's been going well, and it's probably about an 8 right now.
So project management, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean,
really.
abstract.
I run the report, but I really don't have anything to do with fixing it. It's just
Tell
broken.
me to turn that off.
That sounds awful.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, mine is actually pretty similar. It's time because, like you said, being a student, being still in the military, God, we had people RST for this next drill, 3 days notice, and the platoon sergeant said, no. So they're trying to figure out how they're going to do their finals before they come in, or just get a counseling statement for not coming in. Because they didn't manage time, because they didn't manage the 2 lives. And he's like, you had the syllabus in January. Why didn't you say so? So, bad on that. Okay, so thank you all for sharing those. Stress is tough. It kills you. It's going to wear you down if you don't manage it. And if you really don't manage it, it's going to manage you. So I think most of us have probably had 1 or 2 experiences with that. Now, as a quick disclaimer. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not licensed. This is not in any way, shape, or form meant to replace. Hey, don't get ahead of me. Put it back.
Polar bear on the front.
I know. I put it there for a reason. Cheater. This is not meant to replace the help you get from a licensed primary care provider. If you have questions, please address it to them or some other type of professional. This is meant to be informative in scope only. Okay, required per the assignment to say that. Although, yeah, other reasons. Anyway, all right. So our basic overview is we're going to talk a little bit about stress. Then we're going to talk about stress management, and then we're going to talk about time management. How fortuitous! That's most people's biggest problem in here. So we got 3 major objectives there. First, going to give everybody a background in the effects and causes of stress. What is it actually doing? Why does this even happen? Why is my body killing me over this? Things like that. And you've got the handouts, and we're going to go through those as we go through, not when we want to. Okay, so start out, what is stress and what does it do anyway? What is this? What is this I'm feeling? Most of us are acquainted with a fight or flight mechanism. Some of us have felt it in unpleasant situations. I know I did. So as veterans and students, we're all pretty acquainted with being stressed out. Basic training, unless you're Air Force, it was pretty stressful. Oh, was that you? Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Melissa, too.
Yeah, I don't. And I'm not hearing a denial yet. So. But what is it defined as? What is stress defined as, and how do we define the experience? All right, well, Selye was a researcher, defined stress as, quote, non-specific response of the body to any demand made upon it. All right, that sounds kind of cut and dry, but there's follow-ups to the definition. There's follow-ups and variations as you get down. It's like a giant diagram of stress, right? So first is distress. All right, now that's a harmful situation to an organism. Okay, that's like a bear running towards you, for example. Yes, bears are going to come up a lot in this. The picture's not a coincidence. Okay, the other is eustress, which is a situation that is productive to the organism, such as class or exercise. All right, go ahead and flip to the second page. Now you can. Okay. So here we see the balance, the focus, the growth. The table also demonstrates how an increase in stress or stress load causes distress in the individual, which causes a number of other issues. It's also a flip side where not enough stress causes problems. Okay, see the bear? Go back to the bear. First page. Sorry. Goes back and forth. Sorry. All right. Does anybody recognize this bear? This is actually a famous bear. Nobody?
Coca-Cola commercial?
Nope.
Is it Klondike and is it one of the twins?
No.
Oh.
Those are twins.
Klondike and Snow?
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah, they were twin polar bears.
Yeah.
They're
Doesn't
probably
everybody know that?
The more you.
no, not the young ones.
This is Pizza, the polar bear.
Pizza.
Oh,
Yeah, I know, we just
that
said-
one.
Yeah, I have no idea who you're talking about.
Don't be snotty. All right.
I'm
Who's
having
pizza?
pizza.
Who is the aspect?
It's not.
Okay, this is Pizza the polar bear. He lived in a shopping mall zoo in China. This is a couple of years ago. He was the world's saddest bear in 2015. Anybody else see that video? It's like, this is the world's saddest polar bear.
No, actually I haven't.
He looks sad.
Doesn't he?
Yeah.
This is his environment. That's where he was kept like 24 hours a day. There's no sunlight. There's no other bears. There's nothing to play with. There's nothing to do. He doesn't even have a pool. That's actually solid thing. It's just painted that way. So he's literally just in this captivity. He couldn't hide from cameras. People were taking like flash photography all day. It's like, what's going on here? So, as you might expect, he showed a lot of signs of distress and chronic loneliness. Like I said, he's in there alone, right? So animal behavior experts came in. They looked at him. They were like, yeah, he's swaying his head. He's biting at the grates and at the walls. He's just pawing at stuff. They saw what they said is the polar bear equivalent of crying. It's not crying as we experienced it, but as they experienced it. So, point here is that a lack of stress is not what we want. That's what he has. He has no stress in his environment. I mean, look at him. Nobody's hunting him. Nobody's trying to attack him. That's pretty chill, right? But that's not what we're after. So, let's look back at the chart.
Can I ask a question?
You can.
Well, why wouldn't loneliness be stressful?
It would be over time. So, but sometimes people are stressful. Case in point.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, hi, I'm Stressor.
Stressor one.
Some
Stressor
people,
one.
yeah.
Because
Some people are more stressful than others. That's why I don't necessarily include or exclude that. Or exclude, sorry. So, back at the chart, below the first diagram, you see the other diagram, right? That's progressive stress over time and how that leads to exhaustion, which can kill you. Key point to understand here. After the alarms are raised, you can resist stress initially, all right? We've got alarm stage, resistance stage, exhaustion stage. But there's limits. There's limits to the amount of stress you can resist and how long you can resist it. The alarm stage is going to disrupt your homeostasis, right? Your normal everyday feeling, right? It's going to disrupt you. And then it's going to make certain parts activate, namely your adrenal glands. That's going to do your stress hormones and other things. But it also deactivates other things, okay? Really, really cool medical story. They had this guy, they had him cut open. They didn't anesthetize him at all. And they noticed when they started operating at him that his intestines changed colors. It's because his blood was leaving his body. It was going into his limbs because he was trying to get away. And they're like, what?
That is actually kind of
Yeah. That was freaky. So It's going to decrease your blood volume. It's going to inhibit your immune functions, and that's going to allow the bacteria to grow. If there's a polar bear coming at you, bacteria is not a concern, right? I mean, you'd have to be a real germaphobe to be worried, like, I need to hand sanitize while I run away. So, bear's running towards you, blood in your digestive system, not a big deal. Same thing with lots of other things, sex hormones, your cycles, all of that. You can make eggs later. It's not a big deal right now. We're not worried. So, most responses, your body's going to make key adaptive changes. All right. Key example for that is going to be like you're out in the cold, it's freezing outside, shiver. Prompt response, right? You make heat. So that's your resistance stage kicking in. But it's worth noting that's only going to occur if you're continually exposed. You get out of the cold, get rid of the bear, fine. 5 minutes, I'm fine. Right? You stay outside in the cold, you gradually get colder. And you can only resist that cold for so long. How long can you actually shiver before you start to get hypothermic, right? That's where your exhaustion stage is setting in. Your body's saying, screw this, I've had enough, start shutting off the pinky toe. I don't need it. I need my organs more. So you cut the blood flow off to that. You cut the blood flow off to the whole left foot. Left foot's not important. I got to keep everything else warm. That's what your body's doing. That's where you've got exhaustion. You start losing things. But that can happen to all kinds of stresses, right? Not just that version. So, another part of this is after your alarm reaction, you're going to have increases in things. This is where you're really pushing back. Before the exhaustion stage actually comes in, you're going to have a pushback. It's where you kind of rebound from the stress. You're going to have a boost in immunity. You're going to have a boost in energy, boost in all kinds of things. You're resisting, but you're only going to last so long. So exhaustion is going to can be permanent, okay? Exceptionally cold environments like winter cyclones we had this year, which were just so fun. Reminded me of Fort Drum, New York. All right, stress response activates, you shiver, you twitch, muscle contractions, heat up, all of that, all right? So this all encompasses just one version. Everything I just discussed is one version of the stress model, all right? There's at least 15 others, depending on which scientists you want to talk to. So, where was it? Second model that I actually liked, particularly applied more to veterans, all right? This is an interactional model of stress, which I'll now explain. In this model, the perception of stress, that is how you as an individual perceive something to be a threat, all right? How threatening is the bear or the cold or whatever? That's going to be the determinant to how your body responds. Is this a big stress, right? Now this is more for us as veterans and as students, right? So the first stage, it's a big deal for us. This is what's called a primary appraisal, right? An individual uses their previous experiences, knowledge of themselves, knowledge about the event to determine the degree of stress, okay? For a junior student or a freshman student, finals are hell. It's awful. You don't have the experience to really manage all of that stuff. By the time you're in your sophomore, junior, senior years, it's finals. We do this all the time. I was doing it yesterday, it feels like. So pointedly, veterans as a population, we've got more confidence in ourselves because of our experiences, okay? What is sleep deprivation to a veteran?
Normal.
Normal.
Typical.
Okay. Like, how long can that go for us, like, experience-wise?
4 years. Months.
As
long as the
4 years,
contract
8
is.
months, and 28 days.
How many days in a week can you go without sleep? All of them?
All of them.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean by like zero sleep, or like only getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep?
Comparatively, what I'm getting at is like, if you had to stay up late till like 2 in the morning to study for an exam or finish a paper, what is that to us?
That's nothing. That's a
Piece-
piece of cake.
Piece
Yeah.
of cake, it's nothing.
Standard operating procedure.
Yeah.
Love it, SOP. Yeah. For other freshman students or just, all these regular kids who have not done basic training and other things, what is like, I had to stay up till 3 o'clock last night to finish this.
Welcome.
Meanwhile, you're
Welcome.
Yeah. They're complaining about this to the Army vet in the classroom. He's like, And? Were you wearing gear? Were you
Try
sweating?
7 months of it in Iraq. 4 to 5 hours
Did
of sleep
anybody
at night.
shoot at you at the time?
Yep.
I mean, maybe certain neighborhoods that could Yeah, had that the other night around my place. Somebody emptied a whole magazine. It was interesting. So, deadline for a paper, that's trivial compared to a dismounted patrol in Afghanistan, right? But we've had that experience. That's what makes us more confident, more capable as students, okay? Now, there's other situations here. This is a double-edged sword, being veterans, right? Because what's the flip side to that? Injuries, PTSD, mental problems. Maybe we've got handicaps. Another one, we're more further along in life than what a lot of 18, 19, 20-year-old kids are. How many people in here have families or significant others? Okay, couple. How many have full-time jobs on top of full-time school?
Part-time.
I know you do. You're just not really.
No, it's part-time. It's part-time.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's not full-time.
We
I thought
can't.
you
We
had
can't.
full-time on the side of this.
No, I mean, I'm a DJ on the side, so, but that's not
Oh,
full-time.
put them together. You got a full-time.
Yeah, sure.
No.
Just 'cause like you are not giving that to him.
No way.
All right. So if you have PTSD or other things, stressors, they're a lot higher just because of that. Now that's case by case. I don't want to mean to make a blanket statement about PTSD that way, but for those who have had it, things can get incrementally more difficult for them at a faster rate than the people that don't have PTSD, right? So that can cause a decrease in your confidence, similarities in traumatic events, you're rushing, you're stressed. That can trigger PTSD for some people. So it's something to be aware of. So that's decrease in self-efficacy to overcome your obstacles, whatever the case. Appraisal determines how big the stressor appears to the individual. All right, and that starts the response and how the response is going to react to everything. So after the appraisal stage, right, you go into a secondary appraisal. Now this sounds circular, but it's not. All right, secondary appraisal stage, you take the original appraisal views stressor as being threatening or harmful, right? In the secondary appraisal, rather than appraising individual characteristics, right, your experiences, your confidence, your abilities, instead of that, the appraisal constitutes how much control you have of the situation. I think this is really important because you allow stressors to control you that you have no control over, versus the ones we do have control over that sometimes we just don't control them, and then they control us, right? So that's why I like the appraisal stage version of this. Okay. So a lot of veterans are going to experience overwhelming frustrations with their health and healthcare and feel helpless. All right, that's one major example. So part of that has a lot to do with our perception of healthcare as a veteran, which is what?
Bullshit.
They suck.
They suck. Okay, let's face it. Motrin and water doesn't cure everything, right? How many people were told that it would?
Also changing my socks.
That actually is important. As a health advocate, I would encourage it at least daily.
That's what his wife
Nah, you can just pee on your feet. That's what Corman told me.
See?
Yeah, man, when you got trench, when you got trench foot and you're out in the desert,
I wish I could see
pee on your feet, okay?
when she watches this video.
Gore-Tex boots.
Oh.
Yeah,
Why would you wear Gore-Tex boots in the desert?
that's what they issued us. You think I had an option to buy another
She's
type
older,
of...
Marie.
Yeah, we had
Not
all
younger.
Gore-Tex boots.
Wait,
I'm sorry.
how old?
Huh? I went into the Marine Corps in 2002. Yeah. Right?
Looking
Different
good.
Thank you very much. I try. No.
Maybe she's blind. Alright, so you're told from the beginning stress is just part of it, right? We're just told to deal with it. All the tools we ever got in the military, was the stress management method really one of them? Ever? No, not really. Drill sergeant come up to you, drill sergeant, I'm super stressed out. No one gives a shit, son. Move on. Alright? You're told to move on, you're told to carry on, you're told just to deal with it. Deal with this on your own. This is not my problem. As your drill instructor is anybody, right? Your company commander doesn't care, he's got his own stress to deal with. Okay? So veterans can't ask for help with stress, typically, because we're not supposed to. We were told, deal with it. We're not supposed to ask for help. Okay? So because you don't trust the system to help anyway, that leads you into kind of a circular thing, doesn't it? Where you're stressed, it's not working, you're not getting help, it's just getting progressively worse. This is going to lead into, now I got to take a short thing to watch a video for like 2 minutes about learned helplessness and what that looks like. I remember where I put it.
Well, that's why you have 2 laptops.
That is why I had 2 laptops.
So that's because one had a broken screen.
I thought he was just trying to be fancy, you know. Those
With my
people with like
broken
multiple
screen.
computers, you know.
Over there.
That's what it looked like. I'm gonna go.
Learned helplessness. The learned helplessness paradigm is a model for depression. It is a behavior and response to an uncontrollable and aversive stress. In this type of situation, animals will experience a deficit in emotional expression, associative learning, and behavioral coping. In other words, these animals essentially give up on trying to escape due to a sense of powerlessness. To induce a sense of learned helplessness, a chamber which contains a steel rod floor and a shock generator is used. In control animals, an escape such as a separate chamber or a lever is present to allow the animals to escape or end the shocks. However, in the learned helplessness group, no such escape is present at first. After the learning session, even when an escape is presented, the animals will not try to use it to escape, believing they're helpless. This model of expression is useful for testing the effects of antidepressant drugs, such as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs. Escape latency, or the time it takes for an animal to escape the aversive shocks, is a common measure of depressive-like behaviors. Once an animal undergoes the learned helplessness protocol, the escape latency will increase. But SSRIs such as Prozac and Seraphim can decrease the escape latency, showing that the animal...
I'm going to skip that part because I am not here to promote pharmaceuticals. I just wanted you guys to kind of understand, get a warm fuzzy. What is learned helplessness? Why does it happen? What does it look like? Does that look familiar?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for stress management, even for just our health management, for veterans with injuries, dealing with the VA can look exactly like that some days. So, we see from the video what learned helplessness can look like, particularly ones with chronic injuries, chronic pain. VA, this more pills. Motrin and water, right? Do this, fixes everything. Not so much, right? So, feels like going in circles like you don't actually have control. Not unlike Pizza the polar bear, right? He's just going around in circles in that room. He's got no control over anything. And that life sucks. So then you enter the stage 3, right? After you've done all of the assessments, right? You enter coping. Now, coping's a broad subject, and we typically think of that in the negative, like, oh, he's trying to cope with stress, and that's why he's drinking, all right? But not for nothing, because particularly with student veterans as a population, we're some of the worst people at this. And again, we learned this from the military. What strategies did they teach us? How many people learned that drinking would kind of help with their problems when you're in the military? Yeah.
As a byproduct, yeah.
Yeah, I had a sergeant, he would take God, his liver was so damaged. He would take a shot of whiskey with a naproxen and a Motrin before a ruck march. And he said that he didn't feel anything. And I was like, keep doing that. Yeah, you definitely won't feel anything after a while. But you have people like that, or people that want to drink away the pain. It's a really broad subject, but there's positive coping methods too, right? So, you understand the differences. After you've coped with the stressor, you're going to enter a 4th stage, which is reappraisal. There's a lot of appraising going on. It's like housing market. So that's to determine whether the original stressor has been effectively dealt with or not. It's like, okay, I did my coping strategy. Am I still stressed out by this? I am? Okay, let's do this some more. I'm not? Okay, I don't need it. All right. That's what you see like with the mice when they're able to not cope with a stressor successfully. You just degrade your personal and emotional well-being after a while, and you just give up. So that's what that looks like. Objective 2. Now we're going to go into stress management. So by now we've all got a good warm and fuzzy about what stress is, what it looks like, and what that does, right? Don't worry, we're going to switch soon. I'm watching him, but I'm watching you too. Watching all of you. All right. But what can you do about it? You can't just make it go away, right? Even though that's what we were totally told to do, right? Oh, just deal with it. Oh, dealt with it. No, that doesn't work. Did anybody ever actually try doing it that way? No, I didn't think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't work.
I didn't try anything once, right? But you remember that portion about resistance and coping, right? If you lump those two together, you get a very loose definition of the concept of resilience. Most of us, well, maybe not you, you were in before.
Because you're old.
Because I'm old.
North or south?
Seasoned.
North or south? North all the way, baby. Mwah. I'll do what Carlos does. I can't do this stuff.
I had to. Alright. So most of us at some point went through the resilience training in the military, which we all knew and loved as another death by PowerPoint presentation. Aren't you glad I didn't do that?
Yes.
I sure am. That thing
you.
was awful. I would never do that to you. Okay. So in resilience training, you're taught to bounce back from adversity, but also that you have to be able to cope with the stress, right? You're taught slightly less on the specifics of how to do it. You're taught, oh, just cope with it. How? Well, you just do. How? Shut up. That's what that class looked like, and still does to this day, actually. All right. So stress management requires you to undergo behavior changes that may seem radical at first, but really, it's going to deal with your individual abilities, right? So among those changes, you're going to have to do some personal awareness, how you see yourself, being aware of your needs and desires, what's important to you. This is where you develop your value system, all of that. You're going to prioritize, right? So taking stock, your personal needs, all that, better suit your lifestyle, optimize your margin for success. Right? Having the right attitude is important too. Some of y'all got some bad attitudes in here. I see it.
All day.
See it?
All day. Thank God.
All right. So,
helps me to cope.
There we go.
You have a learned student here.
I are
He's
a
paying
college student.
Oh, how's that going for you?
He's coping.
I'm coping.
So having the attitude is important. If you're going to approach everything with a closed mind, you're going to learn nothing. You're not going to get anything from it, right? So if you're not going to learn anything, your grades are going to reflect that attitude too. You can't. Your attitude can and will determine your results, right? And there's some great studies for this too. Thirdly, having the right environmental conditions. If your environment's loud, noisy, unclean, uncomfortable, unsafe, have you created an environment conducive to learning? And not really, right? If you're studying in a dumpster in what my brother affectionately calls Saudi Aurora, you're probably not going to learn much out there. And yes, I do live there. He's a jerk like that. So one of the major concepts for stress management is hunting for the positive, okay? There's a lot of great studies out there that your thoughts feed each other, okay? If you think negatively, you're going to become negative. If you think positively, you're going to have more positive outcomes. They've repeatedly shown this in studies, and they're really good, all right? Negative thoughts are exhibited by negative emotions and expressions, all right? People that are grumpy, irritated, that's you. People that are unhappy with what's going on or what they're doing, I think that's you. Just a little bit.
Actually, no. I should have been the one you pointed out. Look at him, he's over there.
Everyone else points
He's like,
You're like a grumpy old bear. What are you talking
What
about?
do you mean? Why am I?
Again with the bears.
Oh, that's so true. I got that from Coal Miner's Daughter. I know that's an old movie too. Never mind. I need to go home.
Is it past your bedtime? Did you take all your pills today?
No, I think I forgot them. That's why I'm in bad condition.
Okay, so versus the positive people, all right? You've got exhibiting more happiness, a sunny disposition. Maybe they just smile more. I don't know why he's smiling all the time, but he is.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, okay, yeah, him and him, yeah. Those two.
I almost spit up my wife.
Wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
It's all good.
Okay, so this isn't really an unfamiliar concept. We've heard about that kind of thing before, but what you may not have heard, positive outcomes are a stronger motivator than negative outcomes, all right? Your positive outcomes, your positive mentalities, they're directly linked to each other, right? This goes back to your perception of stress. Remember, we talked about how you perceive something. How big of a threat is this? How big of a stress this is, right? So that's going to determine your response. Let's take a practical example of this real quick, all right? We're in finals weeks, right? So you take your final exam. I'm going to fail this test so bad. I've already failed this class. There's no way I'm going to pass it. Anybody know somebody like that?
It's me.
Anybody? Okay, yeah.
I gotta do the same
If you
thing.
didn't raise your hand, it's probably because you're the one that does that. So, but how motivated are you to study if your thought process is, I already failed it?
Mm-hmm.
You got your hands in your pockets, you're kicking rocks. I already failed it. Do you want to study it? No, I've already failed. Negative thoughts. It influences a negative behavior, right? Well, if you already failed, you know you failed. You've got no motivation to do this, right? We're thinking in terms of negative outcomes. We think negative, so we behave negative, right? What did Henry Ford say? Whether you think you can or you think you can't,
You're right.
you're right. Okay. How many people experience this? Regular basis at this school, right? Okay. So negative creates negative, but the same is true of positive, all right? Let's go back to bears for a minute. Now, for those wondering why bears are possibly my favorite and most feared animal, did you see the edge? Just pick that guy up by his leg, like 6 feet in the air, just jumps. Screw that. Bears will eat you.
That's Bart. That's Bart the bear. That's the one I was telling you about. I wasn't making
You
it
know
up.
all these famous bears.
She
did by name.
This was a YouTube sensation, and you didn't know it?
I'm actually kind of surprised I didn't know. We did 2 truths and a
Wait.
lie, and I said that I met Bart the bear, which he did. He came to our town, but I was too afraid. I was like 5. And I didn't want
Is
to
it because it's a polar bear and not a grizzly bear? You racist between
Huh?
different bears?
I don't think so.
You sure? Okay.
No, honestly, I'm surprised I hadn't heard of it.
Okay. So earlier I was talking about Pizza the bear. Pizza didn't have anything to stress him out, and that's what caused him to have the stress, right? Well, what if he had something to manage that with? Let's think about this for a minute. What would it look like if he had some type of stress management for not having any stress? What would he have? Like, go ahead, flip. Something to do, maybe. Maybe have a couple of bouncy balls in the room that you could just, bam. You know, maybe have somebody to do it with.
Or a cave to hide in.
That would have been nice too.
So that's stress management. So he can
Wait,
manage.
is that projection? Is that what you want, or what he wants?
No, that's what I see bears do when I go to the zoos.
Okay.
Yeah, when they get seriously, when there's too many people in the front, that's why they don't come out. They'll jump in the water. They'll go in the back. They'll reduce their
So
stress.
much knowledge about bears, and you didn't know.
You say that, I'm gonna throw something at you.
Okay, go ahead, flip to the 3rd page. There you go. I know, you were so eager to do that. Neat, huh? Alright, this is a stress management diagram. It shows you different methods of doing it. Methods Pizza didn't have available to him, alright? Doubt bears do a lot of music listening or hobbies, but you never know. Maybe she knows. Alright, so you got different methods here. Let's take a look at what all of this means. So real quick, what's the one thing you don't see on this diagram?
Food, alcohol, and drugs.
That is one thing, but it wasn't what I was looking for.
Actually, I was gonna say the
Those
same
are my
thing.
3 medicators. I think.
Sex is not there
So
either.
you really needed this. Work. There's no work on here.
Thank
What
God.
is all of this stuff? This is all recreation-based
Right.
stuff, right? Minus the time management, everything else here is basically recreation. Spa day, that's not work. At least it shouldn't be. If it is, you went to a wrong spa. So these are activities meant to de-stimulate the individual from work stressors, from your life stressors. It's meant to get you away from all of that. Just relax. No No, I'm not on drugs. Don't give me that look. Okay. So, as we're going to mention in time management, not every approach is going to work for every individual. Take me. I have ADD. They told me from like age 7 I needed to just be able to sit quietly for like 5 minutes a day. 30 years later, I still can't do it. Meditation has never worked for me. I've tried many times. I can't do it for more than about a minute. But exercise, that I can do because that's going to engage my creative side. I create my own workouts. I don't just do them out of a magazine. I'll make my own, create my own. It makes me be creative, and then I actually get to apply it. So exercise is great for somebody like me, but other people not so much. Air Force. I'm kidding. I love you. It's okay.
Drew exercises all the time.
Now.
No, he did when he was in the Air Force too. Come on now.
Did
Give
he
him a
though?
break.
Hey, Drew bought the pizza today. Come on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Drew. Pizza was great. All right. So physical activity. Well, we're all vets. We're all pretty closely acquainted with physical activity. All right. I know not everyone here was vet, but for those who were.
That wasn't too quiet, by the way. I think we all heard it.
Well, I hope the teacher hears it.
Okay. All right. So it's not a coincidence that the majority of the things in this table are used as therapeutic practices, particularly in veteran care. You look at the VA, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to incorporate. It's all of these things, right? Music therapy, exercise therapy, meditation therapy, therapy. They're doing all of these types of things to help de-stress vets and get us, into a healthier and hopefully a happier place, right? So, good rule of thumb is 4 or more. There's like 8 on the list. If you don't have 4, don't stress out. That's the opposite of what we're trying to do here, right? It's okay to have 3. So if you have 3 and they're strong, you're good, that you engage in them a lot, keep trucking on. You're doing fine, right? And no, alcohol's not one of them on the list.
I'm just.
Yeah.
This is a good presentation.
I can add it on the list. You know that, right? I can write.
Is there a writing category?
Is there a writing category?
All right. So as an aside here, there's some coping mechanisms work better with veterans because they are veterans, right? Exercise is a clear example of that. It's not unfamiliar to us. A lot of us are all about fitness. Others are about fitness pizza into my mouth. I think that's you. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be Carlos.
Carlos, yeah.
I approve of that message.
I bet you do. Now, I'd be remiss if we didn't address what some negative stress management techniques look like. Provide a few examples. Now, we've already kind of mentioned a few ad-libbed in here, but it's written. I got to go through this. So, it all ties into what we talked about before. We don't trust medical care, and good reasons why. It failed us, a lot of us, and for some people, it continues to do so. So we don't trust it. So what do? Well, if you don't trust medical care or medicine, what does that lead to? Self-medication. Now we're going to see alcoholism. Now we're going to see the drug use. Although in Denver, in Colorado, it's a little different because we have the marijuana and now psychedelic mushrooms.
Yeah. A little excited over there.
Watching you too now. These 3 are the only ones I'm not closely watching yet.
Just wait.
Plenty of
It's like a hidden tiger.
And they're sleeping with their eyes open.
Right.
painted on her eyelids.
Sweet too, I'm awake.
Learned that on CQ one night.
Yeah.
So you're going to see alcoholism, you're going to see drug use. To greater extents, you're also going to see your tobacco addiction and even gaming addiction. Now, let's explore that one real quick. So there's a lot of papers about electronics addiction and gaming addiction, right? A lot of papers, research studies describe the absurd level to which games are deliberately designed that way. All those flashing lights, the algorithms, all the effects, and the gameplay, it's designed to keep you coming back for more and more and more and more. It's not just your shooter games like your Call of Duties and things like that, but your role-playing games. Those are designed to be that way because it gives you a sense of control. And what do you have in an RPG that you don't have in other places? I've got an expectation of positive outcome. I've never seen a game yet that was deliberately designed for you to lose. Except for Duck Hunter, I could never beat it.
Diablo hardcore. You die, you lose everything. You lose your character.
That's on you. You should have chose normal mode.
I'm just saying, it's not all like that, but I'm a gamer, so.
Yeah, so
Heck yeah.
for most players, you're the hero or the projected winner of the game, right? There's not really a game where you're not designed to be the projected winner. Role-playing games, you've got direct connection to a world where you have the ability to exhibit control of your choices, your outcomes, your destiny, in ways that are a lot faster than real life. And again, with the positive outcomes. When you make a decision in a game, you expect a positive outcome almost every time. You rarely die from it. Or in real life, yeah, you could die. Depending on what kind of decisions we're making. So, mainly because the outcomes are quicker, more positive, right? So that's one example of bad stress management. There's a lot more, but I have to move on to objective 3. And I know a lot of you want to turn the page. Go ahead.
I got it.
We're not doing this.
I got this.
Take turns.
We're not doing this yet, but you can turn the page. It's okay. All this leads to a third final objective for the workshop, and that's time management, right? And you saw from the diagram, that's a subcomponent of stress management, right? Managing your time. If you don't manage your time, somebody else is going to do it for you, and you're going to be a lot less happy over it. So that's something that plagues college students the most is time management. You're looking at all your syllabuses, your schedules, your work, and everything else. I mentioned a couple guys who are trying to juggle finals and work. That's just the military, but there are veterans outside who have regular jobs, and you have to, oh, did I request that day off? Crap. Things like that. So how often do you see that? All the time. Now, more than this, and getting toward positive thinking, because remember, that's what we want, right? Positive thinking, positive outcomes. Time management is going to give you something that's important to the types of lifestyles we're accustomed to as veterans. Autonomy and structured, right? When you're in the military, your life is pretty structured, right? But you don't typically have autonomy when you're in the military, right? Army, you don't schedule your day because it starts promptly at 6 a.m. You don't make schedules. Marines don't typically make schedules without the platoon sergeant telling them what their schedule is. Not really sure what the Air Force does for lunch. I think it goes from 11 to 3. Sorry,
and five-star catering.
5-star.
I don't even know if there's such a thing, but I'm gonna call it that anyway.
I'm not sure if the Coast Guard goes to work on a regular basis, but I'm told that they do. There's no Coasties in here, is there?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
See, they didn't show up. So we're not waiting for somebody to tell us where to go and what to do. I mean, everybody's already told you what you're going to do, right? So that's why autonomy is different for us. But structure, that's familiar. Veterans, we've lived in structured environments, some of us longer than others.
I wasn't in that long. I was just in a long time ago.
Oh. No need to be defensive.
I just think it's funny. Drew's actually in longer than me. Like twice the time.
You snitching?
Huh? Snitching? You're not even opening your damn mouth. There, sitting there.
Well, with Air Force lunch hours, does it really count as double time?
Yeah. They still have to put on a uniform.
I am jealous. I've been to your defects, and that was bullshit. So we're used to structure, but not how to create it. All right, we don't create the schedules. Higher ups do it for us, and that's it. There's no discussion about it. Nothing. So you have to develop time management skills. Briefly, pause real quick and do the survey for those that have one. Again, I didn't know how many of you there was going to be.
We need pens.
I got pens. So I'll fill it.
Who doesn't have a survey?
I got pens.
Nice.
Oh, brilliant. But you know it's on the cap, so
right into what is that?
Dip.
Well, obviously. I mean,
it's onion.
Onion
French
dip,
onion
corn
dip.
chips.
You know, it's actually kind of funny because I think those that were actually in like management positions in the military are better at time management when they get out than the ones that weren't.
It's because you have to manage more than just you. You've got to manage you plus
A platoon or like, because I was a platoon sergeant, you know, so
Really?
I made sergeant by like 3 years, so.
Nice.
Oh, I came with a whole bushel.
I'm a recruiter.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's a pen pusher.
Hey, it helps me cope.
Totally.
Don't be lying over there.
Okay, just fill those out briefly and just give me kind of a reflection about how you feel about your score when you get to the bottom.
Your answer first.
Just talk to you.
That's wrong. That's wrong.
How about you get off me?
Stressing me out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You question 16?
I said this was going to help you with stress, not that it wouldn't be stressful.
I haven't got to the management techniques yet. Just know what's stressing.
Score.
Oh, I guess.
That's at the top. All right, we're good there. Just because this is also a time thing, so. But if you didn't finish it, it's fine. What this is really meant to do is get you to kind of start thinking about your time management skills or the lack thereof. So for those who did do the survey, what did that make you think of? How did that make you feel? Seen a lot of, yeah.
Not great.
Yeah.
18 out of 50 is not good.
No.
Thank you. No. Okay, good. I'm glad it's not just me.
Well, it might be
No,
just
mine's
you.
probably
We don't know what
low.
the other scores are. It might just be you.
Well, I didn't have enough time to finish. What does it mean by I
Oh.
make constructive use of commuting time?
So if you're on a
Travel.
train, if you're on a train,
But what if I'm not on a train? What if I drive every day? How am I supposed to use that constructively?
We'll get to that.
YouTube.
YouTube, I listen to YouTube.
Yeah, for like podcasts for like
I can't be distracted while I'm driving. I have to listen. Yeah. Well,
Can
so
you
then I
listen
guess
to
I'll
music
hit.
while you drive?
Huh? Yeah, I listen. I have to
You
listen.
were
to
motor
music.
T. You can't
Okay,
do something.
so
Huh?
That was your job. That was your job.
hold on.
Throw
Time out.
something at you.
Time out. Real time example here. You can listen to music while you drive, right?
No.
There you go.
Yeah, but how is that constructive though? For like,
You're managing your stress for
I
about
sound
20
way too
minutes
literal.
out of the day.
I thought you meant for like school. I'm like,
No,
how am I
that's
supposed
how
to
I
use that
think
for
it too.
constructive time?
But you could listen to a TED Talk.
Stress management's
That's
constructive.
No,
time.
because if I'm talking on the phone, I'll get distracted. Like I don't even hardly talk on the phone. I
Actually,
keep my
let's-
eyes on the road.
Let's check that
and-
real quick. How
Yeah.
many people here would view using your time to manage your stress as being constructive time?
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't think about
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, if you're listening to music while you travel, I used to ride the train, but I never did schoolwork on it. It's just too big of a pain in the neck and shuffling around people or something. But if I can listen to my music for like 30, 45 minutes, that's good. It's a good way to start my day before school. So, anybody else, like feelings on your time management skills or lack thereof from this survey?
I think I'm doing pretty
Leslie,
good.
you look like you got a frowny face. What's going on?
I got a 25.
Slightly better than 18, still not great.
I could use some improvement.
Well, we go. Alright. Alright, good answers all around. So what makes a difference with all this? How do you improve on that? All right. One of the better ways is you're going to have to take control with a plan, which is something veterans can also get behind. We don't make our own schedules, but we are all about planning for stuff, right? And like you pointed out, people that are in upper management levels, you definitely plan a lot more, right? So you got to organize, prioritize. This is going to go back to that whole values thing, right? Like we talked about with stress management. What's important to you? You've got to be able to manage your priorities, but you have to determine what the priority is. Now, for some people, that's going to be different answers for different people. Student veterans, we deal with different situations, like providing or caring for a family, like I was talking about earlier, right? A lot of us, we went in when we were young, got out when we were, well, some of us were older than others, so I'll just say that.
Still young.
What?
I said still young.
Yeah, you did, yeah. Wait for it. Yeah. But you've got families, you've got other needs, you've got your own health needs and medical needs. If you're injured, dealing with chronic issues from your military experience and other things, it's a lot more to deal with than when we were just fresh out of high school, right? So it's going to be different for student veterans. So you plan for what's important. So now that we know what is important, we start planning for it. Looking outward, we see where and when we take actions that are aligned with what's important to us. For example, your class schedules. All right, this is very specific to student veterans because, like I said, we have all those things to juggle. But then you've got to look at class schedules. When is the class available? When is it not available? And your freshman year, that's pretty easy, right? Can take night classes if you have to work during the day. What about when you get to your senior level classes? How many of those are offered at night? Oh, well.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like every class, my earliest class is 5:30.
So sometimes if you're working irregular hours, online classes might be better. You take your schedule to fit what's available, right? Or sometimes you're going to take what's available to fit your schedule, right? It's different for everybody. Again, it's going to go back to your values, what's important to you, what's your priority, what are you trying to do? So you plan ahead, make the decisions for schedules and your priorities. All right, so you can flip the page. Ah, you did it already.
You sneaky.
Oh, it's a happy polar bear.
Oh yeah, you didn't get a time management sheet.
Oh, man.
I'm like, look at this
So I
going.
don't get you improved.
Like, are you already taking the mushrooms? Because you're seeing some shit in here I can't see. Like, look at the lines and the colors. They mesh together and, oh, it's polar bear.
Alright, real quick, let's take the head man real quick. In 30 seconds, tell me your entire schedule for like the next week. Everything.
Work harder, work even
Times,
harder.
days, meetings.
Yeah, I don't know. It's on the calendar.
So doing it mentally, just off the top of your head, that's not going to work, is it? All right. Versus if we all took 1 minute to write your entire schedule out on this for 1 week or even 2, your time, the day, location, everything.
Better do it in pencil.
Right? Yeah, so you can change it. That's actually
But
why
don't
I
put it
stopped
in pen.
keeping schedules, because I'll put it in pen, and I'll have a bunch of like scratch out marks because things
Then you
change
can't
and they have to
read it.
move. Yeah, and then I'm like, I have no more room to write in there. Never mind, I just throw it away.
So the outcome of this is just to kind of demonstrate how an effective written schedule is compared to, I think I have something this time. I don't know what it is. Yeah, having a written schedule is better. Now, electronics, this is where electronics actually is helpful. For those who are cool kids with an Android phone, mine links to my Google. I don't know if iPhones do that. I'm told they do all kinds of things.
They do.
Yeah.
Much more fancy than Android.
Oh, yeah.
They keep it in your head.
Get you for doing it.
Aren't you special?
I'm right. Love my phone.
So, primary concept for time management is to plan and allocate appropriate amounts of time to perform a task, right? Time management defined is that. You give enough time to accomplish a task, right? Well, that sounds like a no-brainer, but, well, if it was that simple, if nobody screwed it up, we wouldn't have to talk about it, right? It's just like our Friday safety briefs. Somebody did something wrong, and now we're all suffering for it. All right. So, there's almost always one thing we don't allocate for with time between activities. Want to take a guess what that might be?
Meantime.
Recovery.
Ooh.
Downtime?
Those are all good ones.
Or
What about travel?
time?
Travel time.
Yeah.
How often do we actually account for that when we're making up our schedules? Never, right? So let's take a.
Well, don't say never.
Well, you never say never. But
Well, yeah, because some people I do because I've been commuting for years, so I always make room for commuting because I'm always commuting.
Again with the special. Look at you.
I am special. I'm just trying
Having
to
your
don't say
iPhone, doing travel time.
never. That's the only thing I did get good on the time management.
Oh, was your
time.
score that bad?
This is 25.
Yeah, I know you didn't get constructive use of time. We established that.
Right? Yeah.
Okay, so travel time, right? The time it takes you to get from one thing to another. All right, practical example. I live in Aurora, but I've got an appointment on Colfax in downtown. Appointment's at 1, I leave at noon. That could work. I could do that without breaking any traffic laws, right? What if it's at noon and I leave at 12:45? That's going to be some Fast and Furious stuff, right? That's going to be ugly. I'm going to be on World's Most Wanted that night. So that doesn't work. Now let's take one closer to home, so to speak, right? Classes, right? If you got a class that ends at 10:30, right? Next class starts at 10:35, 10:40. Sometimes that'll happen. Well, if the classes are next to each other or in the same classroom, not a big deal. But if one of them's in Cherry Creek West and the other one's in the Student Success Center, nah, that's not going to work, right? So you have to set yourself up for success that way too. Account for travel time. Account for how long it takes you to get point A to point B, activity 1 to activity 2, right? So time management is part of stress management. Stress management is part of student veteran success. Everything has its own subcategory, right? Even the stress management wheel I gave you, exercise is in there, right? Yoga was originally part of the stress wheel that I looked at. I didn't like that because I was like, yoga is just a type of exercise. But how many versions of yoga are there?
Like 50.
Yeah.
So many chakras. So many.
Okay.
Now he speaks.
Alright, so she knows about polar bears, you know about yoga. Or no, you know about bears in general, not polar bears. You know about yoga. But you don't know about polar bears. Okay, gotcha. Alright.
I know about the one in the Alaska.
Klondike and snow.
Yeah, Klondike and snow are polar bears. That's why I thought that was Klondike.
So
I need to look them up.
So you got stress management methods that are similar to each other. It all just kind of ties in together, right? But not every method works for every person. You've got to do that inward reflection with yourself to figure out what's going to work for you and what's not, right? So now that we've walked through all this, let's take one last look at pizza. Not the infamous non-Italian dish we spend so much time with, Pizza the Polar Bear. Last page. Those who aren't already on it.
It's not my fault you didn't provide the paper, dude.
Good point.
You got me there.
Did they release him finally?
Yeah. They did.
Oh, good.
This is him about a year ago. After a lot of petitions and other things, there was an animal rights group that was actually able to rescue him from where he was, which was this horrible mall, and they put him in a different zoo. It's still a zoo, but he's got a way bigger enclosure, he's got a pool, and he has another polar bear. So he has a friend, and he's got toys, and he's taken really well care of. So they've said he's actually really active in this place. He's always running around, jumping and playing and stuff. He's a lot happier, okay? So he is a lot happier. He's got things to do. He has stimulation. He has social networks. If we can get those things in our lives, we can too.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do I end it?
Yep.
They're not. Okay.
Alright, so for this, there's a Q&A period now. Does anyone have a question? Even if it's about bears? I might ask her. She seems to know.
I do have a question, and it's a little controversial, but
oh,
I'm
from you. Who would have thought?
I know, right? Thank you. I know. I'm like between the controversial.
Your words.
And they are my words. So there might be, and I know that there's a huge like stigma for video games, but someone who is, say, you know, like disabled or can't move as much, can't use exercise, none of the other stuff is good, but they're having trouble with shutting their mind off. Video games can actually be a very good thing. So
just about anything can be, but anything can also be addictive.
Same with
right?
exercise, actually.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
You
So
can get, you can get a rhabdo from that. That's nasty stuff.
Yeah, I mean, any of them on the list can literally be dangerous to a point if they're on the
It could be.
extremes, you know. I just don't like seeing gaming. Unfortunately, a lot of people are taking gaming to an extreme. But I use it as my pastime.
I
And it
often
works
do
great.
also.
Yeah.
I only include it because the newer literature is starting to include it because that phenomena is starting to grow.
Of course.
Where people are using it more and using it in an adverse way.
Mhm.
Not necessarily even to addiction's a broad definition in itself because you have people who play games in lieu of doing things like taking care of responsibilities, right?
Yeah.
You didn't clean your room, you didn't do the laundry, you didn't take care of your kids, you didn't feed your dog, things like that. That's why they're starting to include it more because they're trying to keep it from getting to be this pervasive, huge epidemic problem.
Well, but then it makes people, the reason why I push back on it is because then it makes people who do use it for a genuine purpose.
Yeah. But
feel
you can
like,
say the same of alcohol. Like the people who have
Yeah.
one beer a day, it's not necessarily an addiction.
Exactly.
Really. I mean, even one drink a day can be an addiction, but it's not nearly as unhealthy versus the people who are binge drinking. Shots,
Well, and I think it also depends on what their outside life looks like as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like their home,
Absolutely.
maybe not necessarily their vehicle, but just, you know, just different things in their life, you know, because otherwise I know plenty of people who can drink as much as they want and they make it to work on time. No. I'm not that good at managing it.
Carlos,
I'm only kidding.
But
we're
I'm
not
just
judging you, bro.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I feel like there's a big, huge emphasis on gaming is bad and it's a horrible thing. And,
I don't.
Okay.
And I don't mean to present it that way either. Like,
Okay.
gaming addiction, when actually diagnosed, it really is in like a severe case
Yes.
where people are ignoring responsibilities and other things they're supposed to do, or they're using it to replace other things in their life, like having a real social
or
connection.
eating. Have you heard about the ones who've died?
There's
From
a few.
There's
There-
been quite a few actually. They'll sit in their gaming chair for so long or whatever they're doing for like 22 hours or something. They won't get up to go to the bathroom, or they might, and they'll just sit there and drink energy drinks and their heart stops.
Yeah.
And it's not like super
Something else
super.
I gotta worry about.
Yeah. No, just here's something. For those, here's something. So for those people that are gamers and that have actually like heard about this stuff, there's something that they do every 2 to 4 hours. You get up, you just walk around. You go do something. You move. You get your blood flowing or whatever, and you eat real food. Don't just sit there and eat bags of chips and like soda, because that literally it could cause your heart to stop. Or seizures too, because there's been
seizures are big with remember I was talking about all the lights and the colors and everything, all those flashy lights.
It's just not real common. Seizures are pretty rare.
It is. It really just depends on the type of game you're doing and maybe the team settings, I guess.
No, it's not the game. Honestly, it's any. If you have a what's it called? If you're gonna get a seizure, anything's gonna cause it. Whether you're watching TV or you're playing a video game.
Think epilepsy.
No,
Or
a
you
seizure. A
No,
seizure.
Epilepsy.
I thought that's what you were like asking for. You're like, I forgot what it's called.
No. Like if you're prone to something, that's the word I was looking for. If you're prone to something,
yeah,
you're gonna. It doesn't actually matter. It's not the type of video games. It does depend. No, because I can't remember on that article that I read, but I was reading about it. So.
Does anybody else have a question?
Yeah. I mean, shut up, Jesse.
I think this is excellent awareness for everybody. You know, this needs to be promoted in our grade schools, everything. My question, though, is what are the steps? How do we help people discover steps for them to take self-responsibility of their own health? Because I think that's the tough part. People aren't disciplined enough to be responsible for their own health. Like, I know how to lose weight. You know, I know what I need to do. I need to work out more.
That's a
But
bigger.
to get me to do it is like, you know.
Yeah, it's like pulling teeth.
Oh,
yeah,
it's crazy.
It's like pulling teeth.
I think I need to go see a shrink or something.
Intrinsic
Well,
motivation.
Therapy was on the list for stress
That's true,
management,
okay,
so
okay, maybe.
I'm not going to dissuade you from that.
Right.
I would say that's a broader question, but first off, answer the question like, how hard is it to teach somebody to be responsible for anything?
Yeah.
Like just being responsible for your actions.
Mhm.
Like you didn't take the trash out. Why? You know,
Right.
just teaching basic level responsibility would seem to be a necessary first step. The next step to that, I would say, would be a social and cultural change, because like you and I were talking earlier about sleep.
Right.
How negatively is sleep viewed in our culture today? Like sleep, oh, you sleep when you're dead. They actually have a word for that in Japan. It's called kairoshi. It's where you literally drop dead. And that's actually happening more. There was this journalist, she was on a train. She just fell face first into the ground and died because she'd had 120 hours of overtime in 3 weeks. Yeah, I crunched the numbers on that. She had less than 6 hours of sleep average per day. Like, you start hallucinating and stuff with that. But the science on sleep is getting better. Science on stress is getting better. They're starting to view what's bad, what's good. In terms of people taking actual responsibility, I see it more with people as they get older, when they're actually faced with consequences. Like when you're 19, 20 years old, you don't care about smoking cigarettes. You know, there's that belief of being a statistical outlier. Oh, I'm not going to get cancer, and then you fast forward 40 years.
You think you're going to live forever when you're young.
Young people don't plan for the future. That's why we have laser tattoo removal, right?
That's actually a good analogy.
So with cigarettes and other behaviors, things like that, you've got to find a way to make them face up to what they're looking at and convince them, no, you are not a statistical outlier. That's 1 out of every 10,000 people. You want to go to Vegas and bet on those odds? You're going to lose. So that's what I would say to that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we're done.
All right, cool.
Right. You're a good teacher.
No,
you actually did really
What
good.
was yours in the physical
Thanks,
Good job.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Nice job, Bryce.